Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta, and it is beautiful today. Hey, folks, this is going to be a really fun one. Scott Mastley is with us. He's with Thread and he's here to talk all things HR, and he's got a lot of insights to share, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Before we get to Scott, though, I want to remind you that if you are at one of those mega banks that believes in computer-generated voices and not really wanting to give you personal service, then Renaissance Bank is the place to go. Here's what clients that I refer to Renaissance routinely tell me. They tell me that Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. That's the experience they get from being at Renaissance. And if that's what you're looking for your business, then renaissancebank.com is the destination. Go check them out, check their local offices, be in touch, and I think you'll be glad you did. And guess what? They answer the phone. Live person answers the phone. Imagine that. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Scott Mastley with Thread. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
I'm delighted to have you here. Let's talk about how you are serving folks at Thread.
Sure. Yeah. So Thread we sell software and service. So three things that are unique about Thread is that we really value our clients' time, because our clients are typically growing small businesses and their time is really important. So we want to make sure that we respect that and do things efficiently and simply for them. We also offer a best in the business technology for payroll that kind of has everything end to end. And then we implement and support that and train their teams on that. And it's always improving and getting better. And then the third thing is that we offer this unique HR consulting service, which is we call HR support for our clients. So that's what we do for them.
And you run the HR side of the business, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that we'll focus our attention on that at this point, but let's talk about your backstory and what got you into HR, what keeps you in HR, and a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Yeah. I got into HR because I was terrible at selling windows.
You mean that literally?
Yes.
Okay.
I was working for a building material supply company that was one of the top 100 companies in Atlanta back in the day. And they hired me to be the high-end window salesman. I knew nothing about that. Didn't sell many windows. I tried faking it for a little bit. But eventually they said, hey, we need somebody in our HR division. And I think that was my only option. So I read that and said, sounds good. I'm your new HR guy.
They got you off the streets. Huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Enough with windows, start HR. So something I never intended on doing, which is typical of many HR people.
Sure.
Is they are voluntold one day, by the way, you're also in charge of HR. And they go, what? And that's how it usually happens.
The short straw.
Exactly.
They drew the short straw.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. You really do hear that story again and again. When you go to SHRM and whatnot, the room's full of people that did not get the HR degree, right?
Yeah. And especially when you work with a lot of small businesses, the owners and the CFOs especially are like, this HR stuff, it drives them crazy. Something that's got to be done, and we just help them to do it as effectively as possible in a way that supports an entrepreneurial mindset.
So, Scott, you've been a consultant with your own business. You've obviously been with inside a company running their own HR from the inside. You're now with Thread. Why Thread?
Yeah, I joined Thread because I had just sold a business, had two partners. We grew up this business, which was an HR outsourcing business, and sold it to an insurance company. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next. And Lori Winters, the owner of Thread, had reached out. We'd had a few conversations over several months, just getting to know each other. And she was interested in starting a HR consulting business to grow her business. And in the course of the conversation, one of the things she said is, I'm always going to do the right thing, whether it's inconvenient or cost me more, because that's how I want to live my life. And when she said that, she had me, and I said, this is somebody I want to partner with and work with and help grow a business with her. Yeah.
Wow. That makes you want to sign up right there, whether you're an employee, a client, what have you.
Yeah. And people can be skeptical about that, but she's proven it multiple times, and I could even give you examples.
And that's probably a big reason for Thread's success, because Thread is, I know of Lori's story and the great work you do at Thread, and y'all have grown significantly, and that philosophy has to have something to do with it.
Oh yeah. I think the reputation is important. If you look at our Google reviews and everything else like that, it's 5-star across the board, and that's unusual.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's talk about what being an HR consultant means. Let's define that. How do you support small, medium-sized businesses?
Sure. Yeah. So we basically support the person wearing the HR hat. That's how I define it. So that may be a one-person HR department, or it may be 6 people in the HR department in a 300-employee company, right? But they're wearing the hat, so we're supporting them. So it's different depending on who is wearing that hat. If it's a one-person department, we are helping them build the structure for HR, the basics, right? Forms, policies, processes, everything else, compliance, audits, training, helping them learn to become an experienced HR manager. So a year or 2 down the road, they are ready to take that over and might not even need our help. So sometimes we work ourselves out of a job because we help to train that person, right? But if it's a bigger group, sometimes I'll say to them, look, I know you know how to do it, but you don't have time to do it. And there are some things you don't want to do.
All right.
So give us the things you don't have time to do and don't want to do, and you focus on the big stuff.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And just talk about the what's at stake piece of this, because those that get dumped into that role at HR, that drew that short straw, don't have an appreciation for this until they get there. And that, what I mean by that is all the regulations, all the changes, particularly if you're a multi-jurisdiction business, and that you've got to handle, right?
Yeah, the multi-state is probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
For any HR person, because it changes all the time. If you're in California, you're going to get a weekly update, because that's how frequently they change the expectations, the rules, the laws. That's
crazy.
Stop. And there are other states that try to keep up with California, but it's leading in the challenge factor. But yeah, multi-state, we have clients in almost every state. And so we just try to help them stay on top of it as much as possible. We start with what's obvious and let's fix that, get the low-hanging fruit, and then let's go from there and go a little deeper and deeper. So it starts with the basics, and then we elevate it over time where we get into past like compliance and forms and policies and stuff like that, to how do you engage employees? How do you improve your onboarding for new hires? How do you get your managers to enjoy the performance management process instead of dreading it, right? How do you prepare if key people were to leave, or if you're planning on growing or expanding into new states, or all those things? So there's a lot to do, and we pivot based on their priorities and go from there.
You talked about California, and it seems to me in just my inexperience, but asking a lot of questions of people like you, what it seems like happens across the states is that it starts in California and seems to spread. Other states see what California's doing, and that spreads. So as an HR professional, you can't just say, oh, that happening in California. That actually, whatever's happening that you're looking at may be affecting you someday soon, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like I think of it like a lobby effort, right? It's coming.
Yeah.
Whatever the topic is or the cause is, it is coming some form or another eventually. So you need to be prepared for how you're going to respond, or if you want to proactively jump ahead of something. A couple of our employees went to the National SHRM conference last year, and it was their first time going. And when they came back, I said, how was it? What'd you learn? And they said, the main thing we learned is that we're ahead. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, just a lot of people were learning something for the first time. And it's something we've already put in place 6 months ago or a year ago, just trying to be ahead of the curve. And that's one of the goals of our HR support practice, is being proactive.
Right.
So multiple ways that plays out. One is we do a recurring monthly meeting with every client so that we're driving the relationship. Because if they have call Scott on a list on a legal pad, that could happen 3 months later.
Sure.
Because in HR, your day changes every day unexpectedly. You never get through your list of what you thought you were going to do. And so we make sure we drive that. And my big joke I always tell people on our prospect meetings is, we're not a gym membership. We're not hoping you'll sign up and never show up. If we were a gym membership, we would drive to your house, wake you up, and say, let's work out. That's how we do it. We are making things happen. We want to have an impact because it's real. It matters. You're spending money. Let's support you, and let's make this worth it.
Yeah, that is powerful, because I can see how in your industry, how some folks play it a little more passively.
Yeah.
And then something bad happens and they maybe blame it on the client, right? And they don't really, their lack of proactivity has cost the client, and the client may or may not know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And having been part owner of a couple businesses myself before I came here, made me realize what I want and don't want in a consulting relationship.
Right.
And everybody has been burned by a consultant who charged a bunch of money, made a big show, was real flashy, and then you end up doing all the work. And you go, that was ridiculous. So we made a point of not doing. A lot of HR consulting companies are call centers or totally reactive, and it's that kind of thing, the gym membership model. And we are not like that. So we want to deliver. We want you to brag about us and say, this was worth it.
Let's talk about some specific issues that are winding around here in the HR world that business owners in general need to be alert to, and making sure that are being paid attention to in their HR function. One of those is cannabis, right? And that's not just a California thing. It's not just a Colorado thing. It's like an all over the U.S. thing.
Yeah.
So talk about that issue and how that affects HR people, how they need to be paying attention to that.
It is very interesting. Like, I've been doing drug-free workplace training for 20-something years, right? And one time I went to see a friend who owned a business, and I was sitting in his office, and he had 3 or 4 offices down the hall in this building. And I said, do you want to be a drug-free workplace? You could save money on your workers' comp in Georgia. And he pulled open a drawer, and it was full of a bag of marijuana. And he goes, do I look like I want to be a drug-free workplace? And I hear all these guys laughing down the hall. I said, okay, it's your business. I guess not. Yeah, I know the answer. But yeah, there's a lot of money in regulating that. And so once politicians see that and go, ooh, this could help with taxes and roads and schools and everything else, let's sell some marijuana in this town, right? That's basically what's going to happen. It may come slow to Georgia. Everywhere else, it's happening like crazy. So one big change is, I have clients who are in Colorado, and they say, we just don't drug test anymore. Because where it's recreationally legal, it is hard to hire people who would pass a drug test. And so a lot of them just stop doing that. Or they say, we will still be drug testing, but we're going to ignore any positives for marijuana because we get so many of them. We just can't do that anymore. So that world is changing a little bit. There are arguments about impaired, right? Like, why do you drug test people? You drug test people because you want a safe workplace, and you don't want people who are impaired on the job because they could hurt themselves or others, right? How do you prove that?
Yeah.
And so if it shows up in my system, the argument is if I smoked something 2 weeks ago, that doesn't mean I'm impaired today, but it might show up on a drug test, right? So that argument is coming up more and more, and it's harder to enforce that. But most states, even with recreational and medicinal marijuana laws that legalize it, will say it is still okay to drug test. It's still okay not to hire someone if they fail the drug test. It's still okay to discipline someone. All those things are still in place. You just have to be careful about how you do it. And then there's 2 sides to everything with HR, right? There's the regulatory side, and then there's the reality.
The people side, right?
Here's what the law says, and then here's how this plays out in the real world.
Right.
So you always have to decide, am I in this just for compliance to say I met the requirement of the law, or do I want to do something that fits my business? Right? And if you have challenges hiring people because nobody's passing a drug test and you look around and say it really hasn't been an issue, then maybe you change that rule.
Yeah.
It's just up to you. But people get excited about this, but it's something that everybody should be paying attention to.
Yeah. Let's talk about remote workforces. So obviously we're a few years now after the pandemic, but the whole issue of going back to work, quote unquote, is still with us. The idea of, do I need to offer a remote working option in order to be able to hire?
Sure.
All these things are still out there. Talk about the challenges of that environment and how you counsel your clients around that.
Sure. Yeah. So the number one question that almost every client I have gets from every applicant they have is, can I work remote? So they have to have an answer to that. And sometimes it's no. You're a boat mechanic. I need you where the boats are so you can work on the boats, right? Mm-hmm. That's not an at-home job.
Right.
So we have doctor's offices and dental offices, professional service firms, everything. And sometimes they're like, I need you here. Not all the time, but most of the time or whatever works for them. So the challenge is management has changed a little bit. If you have a remote or a hybrid workforce, you better be very good at communicating. You better be good at making sure that everybody understands what the expectations are, what the metrics are for success. You need to have the right metrics in place. You can't go nuts with measuring 100 different things because people just leave, right? Mm-hmm. You have to hire people you trust because they are going to be at home doing laundry, taking the dog out, and occasionally sitting on the deck getting some sun or whatever they want to do. Sure. That's going to happen. The worst extreme of that is people who have 2 jobs at home and you don't even know it. That happens as well. You try to avoid that, but you have to, at Thread, we say these are the top 5 for your job. If you're doing these 5 things well, then you are successful in your position and you're doing what we need you to do. So sometimes it doesn't matter if you do that in the middle of the night or during the day, as long as it gets done. If you take care of the client, whatever the metrics are, those are really important to have the right metrics. And we will change our metrics if we realize they're not moving the needle, they're not incentivizing behavior or whatever it is. So over communicating is really important, having regular check-ins, having the correct metrics, keeping that pulse with your employees. There are 2 things that I will say happen when you go remote. Productivity will drop almost universally wherever you are, whatever it is, no matter what people say, that happens. Mm-hmm. So that's real. And then employees will start to feel a little disconnected. Even though they asked to be home and would rather not come back into the office, they also will say, it doesn't feel like the family thing that we used to have sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah, that's because we're not getting together as much. We're not in person. We have the option to do that. So we have an office space and we can get together. Our HR team, sales team come in because we like to get together and work together. Our ops team is typically virtual. They're spread out a little more. They're multi-state. Mm-hmm. So what they do sometimes is they will get on a Zoom meeting and it's not a scheduled meeting. They're just leaving it open so they can work together and talk as they're working and almost like you're in a shared office, right? So that's how they connect to each other, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
It's a great way to adapt. But I read articles every day, I'm sure like you do, about Amazon is requiring people to come back to work. And if you don't like it, you can quit. And I think that you have to take that stance. If you're going to say people have to come back to work, then you need to know they're either going to quit or they're going to come back to work. Yeah. I have heard from peers who have required like a 3-day return to work that their employees were surprised at how much they like it, being back in the office and rubbing shoulders with their coworkers and seeing people and being able to laugh and all that stuff at work. They love it. So it's not for everybody. We are like a hybrid. So we're basically, everybody's remote. You can come into the office if you want. Mm-hmm. We don't require anybody to come in, but some of us want to come in. So that's how we do it.
And there are a lot of demonstrable benefits to the employee to being in person when it comes to learning the things that happen around the water cooler, the old proverbial water cooler. But that's a real thing, right? Being able to just grab a sandwich together and chat out a particular problem, or to be mentored by someone, either formally or informally. And that's for a human development, professional development aspect. That's really a vital part of being in person, right?
Yeah. Think about it like this. You've written a book, and as an author that you probably heard, if you think it, ink it. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you have a great idea, you better write it down.
That's
you're
right.
Gonna forget it in the morning. And it's that same concept when you're with someone in a room face to face. Things will occur to you that you can then ask about or talk about, and these may be ideas that could be lost. If I'm sitting at home in my basement office with no windows, which is what I have, people will go, God, the weather's rough today. Is it? I have no idea. I'm sitting in my basement. I have no window. But I will think of things that I want to talk to someone about, and if you don't capture that, it's gone.
Yeah.
But if I'm sitting here face to face, I bring it up, we have a conversation, we may launch something great, but those things are lost more easily when you're not around each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Scott Mastley is with us, folks. He is with Thread and runs the human capital management piece
we call
of
it
Thread.
managed services.
Okay. Got it.
Because we offer multiple services. We do managed payroll. We do the payroll for our clients. We have our HR support option, and that's it basically in packages.
Yeah.
So we can scale with you up or down. It can be a little or it can be a lot, right? Whatever your needs are. And we do some onboarding work with them as well and other things to help out.
You mentioned, and I was complimenting you off the air about your LinkedIn presence. Folks, follow Scott on LinkedIn, seriously, because he really writes some great posts and on the state of affairs in HR. And you wrote a really good piece on another issue that's out there, and that's unlimited time off. And that's being, I think, adopted by a lot of business owners as a benefit, and a lot of mostly big corporations as a benefit. I'm not sure it's all filtered down to small and medium-sized businesses yet. But you wrote about how counterintuitive this policy can be when it comes to the results.
Right.
Say more.
Yeah, so we thought it would be a great idea because we heard about it, unlimited PTO. We're a fairly progressive company, high culture, high performance. And we said, let's do that. Studied up on it, and it seemed like a great idea because at the time, everybody was saying, this is great. It's going to be great. Everybody wants it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the reality was very different. We found after about 2 years of having unlimited PTO that the average time that the person took was less than 2 weeks per year. And we really wanted them to take more than that.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of questions on LinkedIn saying, was it a way to control how much time? And you knew in the beginning that if you said unlimited, they wouldn't use much and that kind of thing. But that's not the case. We actually want people to use their PTO because we work hard. We put in long days sometimes. We are there to support our clients because we care about them. And so we want people to have time with their family. That's important to us too, or time to themselves.
Right.
Staycation, vacation, whatever works for you, that's great. So we changed it to a fixed plan where we offered it. When we started, we talked about 3 to 4 weeks. So 3 weeks for a couple of years, then 4 weeks. And we got feedback from our employees and said, that's great for vacation part of PTO, paid time off. But what if we get sick and we need to take a week off? Remember, this comes after the whole COVID thing.
Right.
So everybody's still thinking about, what if I get sick? What if I get the flu? Whatever.
Exactly.
So we added a week. So now we do 4 weeks up to a few years. And then after that, it's 5 weeks. And then at 7 years, you get a paid 3-week sabbatical on top of your paid PTO. Because how often do people stay 7 years anymore? And we've had a handful of employees already use that sabbatical and come back and go, man, that was like life changing or life affirming. It's a big deal to be able to do that paid so you don't have to worry about it. You can just take the time. And so the fixed thing removes the uncertainty and people actually use the PTO, which is what we want.
Yeah, that counterintuitively makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that really does. There are some salary threshold changes that are coming that you've been alerting your clients to. Talk about those. Yeah.
So there's a change to call someone salaried exempt. I'll get a little HRE here.
Yeah, okay.
You've got to meet a few things, right? You have to pay them on a salary basis, which means they're paid a fixed salary that does not change week to week, whatever, based on time worked. This is what you're getting paid to do your job. So that's it. Doesn't matter if you work 8 hours or 80 hours, whatever. Then you have to pay them a salary level, which is what this is talking about, which is the dollar amount that you need to pay to qualify as a salaried exempt position. And that level was increased in July and then is going to is scheduled to increase again in January. And the increase in July was semi-reasonable. The increase to January, according to many people, is not semi-reasonable. It's not enough time to plan for the hit to the budget, right? So the counter argument to that is just make them hourly and pay them overtime, which is the intent of this rule, right? If you don't have people who qualify, they should be hourly and earn overtime, right? So we tell our clients, don't do anything until it's done. So don't get excited about what's coming, what could happen. There are a lot of webinars out there right now saying what to expect after the election. Unless they know who's going to win, they don't know what to expect.
Exactly.
So I don't spend a lot of time on those kind of things. I wait till something's done and it's in writing. And here's what you're supposed to do. So we tell our clients, look at all your employees, look at the ones who you are calling salaried exempt, who are not making that dollar amount, and then say, are they close enough that we could bump them if we had to and they could remain salaried? If not, what's the plan to change them to an hourly status, train them how to clock in and out on the payroll system and start managing overtime and all that? So just have a plan and be ready to go whichever way that decision happens. My guess is the dollar amount will change, but something will stick.
Great advice. Scott Mastley with Thread, folks. So, Scott, let's talk about a little bit about the types of clients that you serve and the clients that are great fits for you.
Sure. Yeah, we are a high culture, high performance company. So we seek out clients who align with that. If we talk to a prospect and they could care less about their employees and they're not in it for that, then they're really not a great fit for us for the HR service. Payroll is payroll. You can pay your folks, but for the HR service, for us to be effective and to work well with them, they have to actually care about doing the right thing. So we basically focus on companies that are about 30 to 350 employees. If they're growing, if they're expanding into new states, if they're planning on hiring new people, starting new initiatives, if they have just lost their HR person or payroll person, or they'd like to grow an HR professional internally, they're all great options for us. We have clients who are, like I said, one person department, or they may have a whole team of people and they still need our help.
Yeah. So the scope is very much oriented toward the client's needs.
Yeah. We have clients in almost every state. We have professional services. I have boat dealerships. I have oil change places. I have law firms, you name it.
You've got it. That's
churches.
Yeah. You've got a little bit of everything there. So I would love it if you could share maybe a success story or two that help illustrate the great work you do.
Sure. Yeah. So we have a boat dealership that they sell boats and service boats, right? Pretty cool business to learn about and be involved with. And they were with a PEO, a professional employer organization, right? Where you pay a fixed fee each month and it covers some basic stuff. My experience personally with PEOs in the past is that the service has not been that great. And this is just me talking from my experience. And the costs are pretty high. So I like to see folks leave the PEO arrangement and take their corporate identity back and have control of their employment decisions and spend a little less money, budget that money towards other things. So after we had been with this client for about a year, the CFO who we're dealing with said, you've saved me about $150,000 a year with this arrangement. And our management team, you come on site, you participate in our trainings, you have become a partner with us, and we love working with you, and you're having a real impact on our business.
Yeah. Wow. That's really where you get, this is a lesson for everyone that's in the service business. You want to get past the vendor stage to the partner stage, right?
Correct. Yeah, we get invited to their parties and all kinds of stuff.
That's wonderful. That's fantastic. Scott, this has been fantastic. I can't imagine there aren't some folks that upon hearing this interview wouldn't want to be in touch and learn more about Thread and the work you're doing and your services. So let's give them directions, how they can find you.
Sure, definitely. Yep. You can reach out to me at threadhcm.com, and we have buttons on the HR consulting page where you can say, talk to Scott, reach out to Scott. We joke with our team, just offer Scott out for free advice, because I will take a call from anybody and say, I have an HR question. I might not be ready today, but eventually I'll need your service. And so I do that a lot. We love to help. My kind of personal mission is just to help people, have a positive impact on the lives of others. And I'm a champion of small business. So if I can help small businesses or people in small businesses, I really want to do that.
That's terrific. Scott Mastley, folks, with Thread. And Scott, we're delighted we could shine the light on your great work. It's been a blast chatting with you. I could go on and on with some of the questions I have, but we'll let you get back to it. But thanks again for that work, and keep it up.
All right. Thank you so much. You too.
Thank you. Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we let you go for today. I've got a book out that's aimed at solo, small professional services firms. And if you're interested, or if you're having trouble, I should say, with your value, understanding your value, expressing that value, your positioning, your business development, and your pricing, this book is written just for you. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. It's available where all books are sold, as the old saying goes, whether that's the big mail order behemoth we know about or your fine local bookstore, that you can order it there as well. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more. Also, I want to thank, if you're listening to this show, I want to thank you. It's just that simple. You and so many other listeners of this show have supported us over the years, and we've only gotten this far because of you. I think this is show number 815 or something like that. And it's amazing to me when I think about it, but it's amazing to me because of the support that we get. Our mission is to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond, and you support us in that effort. You love us on social media. You share the show with folks that might need the services of Scott or some of our other guests. You send us great guests. And so I'm just overwhelmed by the support that we have and grateful to you as we, again, live into our mission to support business in all forms here on the Business RadioX network. So for my guest, Scott Mastley, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.